Joanna. This is my channel where I talk about knitting and yarn and designing knitwear. You're welcome here. My husband, our 4 kids, and my parents all live on a plot of land in Alberta, Canada. So if you're counting, that's 8 people, and that doesn't include all the animals we have here. So I'm really blessed to have this crazy, chaotic life with an abundance of people and animals and wildlife and greenery and woods and all that amazing good stuff. You can find me if you'd like to see more about me and my knitting and my designs. You can find me on Ravelry as the Bluebird Box, and I have an Etsy store named the same, and I'm also on Instagram as the Bluebird Box. So pretty much that's me everywhere. And I also have a newsletter. You can find the link in the description box below this video, and there you can sign up for pattern release notifications and discounts, and if you'd like to test for me one day, you can sign up to be on that list also. So it's March 2022. It's still very much winter here where I live. It's been snowing for about 36 hours straight, and yeah, so that's where we are today. So if you're watching this pretty close to its release, then you know about everything that's happening in the world today, all the crazy things that people are doing to other people, and I've been feeling it pretty hard. So feeling kind of lost and helpless. I'm sure you are too. So I thought I would podcast today, give myself something to do, give myself a distraction, and hopefully provide you with a distraction also, and maybe a little bit of joy and beauty to your day. So let's get to the knitting. I'll start off with the garments that I've been knitting over the past month. So last month I released the Always Vest. It went over quite well, and if you purchased it, thank you very much. If you supported it in any way, told people about it, I really appreciate it. It went better than I expected. It was my first ever pattern release since starting a newsletter, so that was good to see that it had some positive benefits from the newsletter, and yeah, it was just a really fun release weekend for me, and my testers did amazing jobs of their vests. So if you know the story of the Always Vest, it originated because my mother has been asking for me for years to design a vest for her to make for my dad, and I basically didn't have motivation to do it until I made one for myself. So the Always Vest is quite feminine. It is a cropped waistline. It's kind of a higher neck. It has waist shaping so that the narrowest part is should be right at your natural waistline, and then it widens to your bust circumference, because typically that's like a more feminine cut, is fitted all the way. So it's a great little number for wearing over dresses or with high-waisted skirts or pants. And it has a really nice structure to this wool, because I used what's pretty much an Aran 100% wool, so it when you block it, it makes 100% wool that is not worsted spun and that is not treated in a superwash treatment tends to act sort of like Velcro, and all the little yarns stick together and they create a fabric that's cohesive and structured. So it's quite it's a structured garment, which is nice for stuff that fits well, like is fitted, I mean. So after that vest design, I decided I needed to write it up as a more masculine design so that my mom could make it for my dad. So that means that the armhole depth had to change, so a vest comes to your shoulders. So for women's designs, the bust circumference and the shoulder width is a different proportion. For example, you might have a large bust, but your shoulders are not very large. You can have narrow shoulders and a large bust, whereas a man tends to be have wide shoulders and a wide chest. So those dimensions had to change. So basically it's an entirely new design. So I used what I had left of my Always Vest yarn to just get done what I needed to get done for the I'm going to call it the Evermore Vest, I think. So it is a longer length. It will actually be even longer than this. I just didn't have enough yarn to spend on this waist length, on this body length. So it'll be longer that way. There's no waist shaping. The armholes are deeper, and I've also made the neck a little bit the neckline drop more significant, so that it will fit like a button-up shirt, collars out. It will fit that really well. So I ran out of yarn to finish this sample, but that's okay because once I get it back from the tech editor, my mom will knit up a sample, and that will be what I use for photos and everything. So I'm hoping to have that figured out and ready for testing. So if you prefer that kind of fit for a vest, or if you want to make it for somebody else, I'll hopefully be calling for testers in the next month before my next podcast airs. Another garment I've been working on is the Lennox Pullover. I think I've talked about the Lennox Pullover every episode, but I don't know if I ever said the name of it. The Lennox cardigan was a child size cardigan that I made and released, and then I've used that stitch pattern to create the oversized Lennox Pullover. So I wrote up the pattern, and now I am knitting up a second sample. So this was my first sample. And it has this kind of lattice stitch pattern, which is actually worked from inside out. So I have to admit that I didn't enjoy knitting that first one very much. I found it's very oversized, but in a lighter gauge yarn. It's a sport weight, which I think if you have an oversized garment, the fabric shouldn't be thick. Like if you have an oversized garment with thick, chunky wool, it becomes heavy, it doesn't drape well. If you use a sport weight non-superwash, it creates that nice structure within the fabric, but the fabric itself is light. And I think it's a lot more flattering that way. And I don't like to be really hot in my knitwear, so something light that keeps me warm is perfect. So I have to admit that I enjoyed knitting this sample so far, a lot more than the first time, which I think is a great sign, because typically I don't knit things twice. I don't enjoy doing the same thing over and over. One of the reasons I don't like to knit socks, and yeah, I generally don't knit a pattern more than once, unless, for example, I want one for my one child, but then the other child wants one in a different, and then they have to have a different size. Then I've done that quite a few times. But for myself, I don't have the attention span for that. There's too many beautiful things out there to knit one more than once, in my opinion. So anyway, I think it's a good sign that I am enjoying this. So far I have 2 sleeves. So this is in Sandnes Garn Tove, which is a sport weight non-superwash. I think this color is called Autumn. So I have 2 sleeves here. And I love this sleeve construction. It's when you cast on and then you increase to your correct width, and then you just go straight. So it's perfect car, knitting, waiting for your appointments, visiting with friends. And I like the fit of it too. It's just kind of an easy sleeve to wear. So it will be obviously more oversized when I'm not wearing 2 sweaters at once. And I have a good chunk of the body done. So this is the side that you're working. You're looking at this side while you're knitting. And the whole thing is knit inside out. So the sleeves are knit with the stockinette facing you, but the reverse stockinette will be what is showing at the end. And this is the inside, the side of the fabric that you don't work, that you don't see while you're working. And it has that lattice stitch pattern. So once I attach all of them together, the sleeves and the body, I'll actually continue working it inside out until the very end. Then when I bind off the neckline, I'll actually bind off the neckline and pick it up right again, and I'll do that from the right side. But otherwise the entire thing is knit inside out. So basically you're really just doing stockinette for the most part, except for this one is 2 rows of doing something and 4 rows of stockinette. So it's really nice and rhythmic that way. So another garment that you've seen a few times if you've been watching this episode, or my episodes, is this legacy pullover. It should be released in the next week. On May 13th it should come out. Normally I do a really good discount. I do 50% off for the first weekend of its release. But this time I've decided that I won't be doing that. I will be charging full price. However, 60% of the proceeds will go towards relief efforts in Ukraine and in surrounding countries, I guess more so, where Ukrainians are evacuating to. So that's this. I think full price is completely reasonable to pay for a knitting pattern. That's all I ever do. Obviously I have a different perspective because I'm a knitwear designer, so I understand the amount of work that goes into a pattern, but personally I never buy a pattern at a sale unless the release, there's no way to change it. You know, sometimes people just make it half a certain discount off and you have no control when you add it to your cart. But if there's a discount code, I don't typically, I don't use them, because I figure that if I'm buying a pattern, I plan to make it. Things don't always go to plan, but I figure it's just part of the cost of making a garment that fits me, just like a sewing pattern. They are, yeah, they're not cheap. So it's just part of the, even though fabric is super expensive, a pattern is just part of the cost of making your own clothes. So even though yarn is expensive, that doesn't mean that a knitwear designer should have to eat the cost of you making your own clothes. Anyway, that's a rant. But obviously I understand that people enjoy buying patterns and don't have unlimited budgets, and I think I would like to support the people who yeah, I would like to give back to the people who support me and who follow me on all my various channels and who sign up to the newsletter. So that's, anywho, that's a story. I have done that for the past 2 and a bit years since I really started coming back into knitting, knitwear design. So I haven't really come to a point that I've decided that that's too much of a discount. So I will continue to do that, but just this time around for this sweater, I will not provide a discount, but money will be going to a worthy cause. And I think it's appropriate too, because this sweater is really special to me. The wool in this sweater, the wool yarn, came from sheep that I knew and have interacted with. So, and this entire sweater was created within my province. So there's no, yeah, there's no outsourcing. It was, the wool was grown here, the wool was sheared, spun, dyed, designed, and knit in my province of Alberta, Canada. So it's a deep and meaningful project to me already, so I think it's even more special to me to use it to help others who are really hurting right now. Yeah, so this is the Legacy Pullover, and I absolutely love it. I do not react to wool very much anymore. I used to get rashes from it, but there's still some wool that I find scratchy, but this one I find so soft. Like, I don't know, it's not like merino soft, but it just has this like warmth and coziness to it that yeah, I find, I don't know if I've ever had that really with the yarn. So, and I will put the information down below of where you can buy it. And Kaylee, the dyer behind Luddite Yarns, who collects the fleeces, has them spun, dyes them herself. She is coming up with some sweater quantities and things like that. So she's a great resource to get your yarn for this sweater, especially if you want it super cozy like mine. This brown is a natural sheep shade. So black sheep are actually kind of more like this dark brown. And then this, she's dyed with avocado. This one is a white fleece dyed with avocado, and this one is, I think it's dyed with marigold. That's what the color is called. I should have checked on that, but it's a plant-based dye. That's what Kaylee uses. So yeah, just a lot of things going for this design, things that I get really excited about. Okay, I can't really show you, I've been doing a lot of designing this past month, but unfortunately I can't show you all the things. I've sent in a lot of submissions. I haven't heard whether any of them are accepted. If some of them are not accepted, I will probably use them for designs of my own for the spring. But I'll just give you a little sneak peek of my little swatch stack of all the things I've been designing. So each of these colors is a different design. Yeah. I think it's so pretty together. Isn't that spring-like? I don't have a lot of accessories to show you this time. I've been kind of busy with other things. I have so many designs that are like close to being ready, but I just don't have the time to spend on my computer. We've been skiing a lot. I typically work Saturday mornings and Mondays, but that means that our weekends are broken up and it's difficult for me. Yeah, it's difficult for our family to go and do stuff. So the weather's been really nice. We went away one weekend to visit family and friends, and another weekend we went skiing the entire time. So that means I haven't had as many hours to spend working. I've been having fun, but I am kind of feeling the lack of work hours. So I have had some that I could have actually called for testers, but I just haven't had the time to look over the patterns and get them the last final things, pushes ready. The last final details done on the patterns so that I could call for testers. Wow. Okay, so there is a yarn store opening up near-ish me. It is probably about an hour away, but it is in St. Albert, which is northwest of Edmonton. So I came up with this. So these are the colors for the release that Robin did specifically for Yarn Divas. I will probably have this in black and white if I'm not allowed to show you these colors yet. But I did this double lined cowl. So the right side has this little butterfly stitch. It starts off with a picot edge. You cast on along the edge here, and you actually work this way, do a picot edge, change your colors, work down, change your colors again, do a picot edge, and then because reverse stockinette has bumps, it actually has more shadows than regular stockinette. So I wanted to be sure, so here you can see regular stockinette here. It's a little brighter than reverse stockinette. So because I wanted the yarn, the inside yarn, to show through these little butterfly wings, I really wanted the reverse stockinette to be the one that is meeting this fabric here, the right side fabric. So that meant that the inside liner of the cowl needed to be reverse stockinette. But I don't know about you, the thought of knitting 9 inches of reverse stockinette is just unappealing. So I incorporated some short rows so that the inside liner is actually worked with the wrong side facing in stockinette. And that way you don't ever really have to purl. Here's my liner here. And then the butterflies show up a little bit better, so I'll show you what it looks like. Oof. A little plastered hair there. Yeah, I'm quite happy with how it turns out. I think it looks a lot better worn than it does laying on a flat surface. But So this is called the Midnight Monarch. It's currently in testing, and we're hoping to have it for Yarn Divas release date, which is in April sometimes. Not Yarn Divas release date, their opening date, which is in April sometime. Oh, and then I forgot to tell you that when you're done, so you actually work it like it's just a really long tube, and then when you're done, you mattress seam these edges together. The final accessory that I finished over the past month was the Cozy Up Knits Throwing It Back cowl, which ended up being a very long, like, stole scarf. I don't really know how to do this. I think if I had known how the design was gonna be in the final stages, I probably would have picked different colors. I wouldn't have picked this navy. I love the combination of blue, this light blue and navy together, but yeah, I think probably picking a kit is probably a better way to go for cowls instead of stash diving or following instructions, because they specifically said you should have one main color and 3 contrast colors that are like the 3 contrasting colors should have been similar, so similar tone, so like these 3 would have worked, and I think that would have been a really beautiful result actually if I just stuck with those and not added a 4th of the dark. Yeah, that was my first ever mystery knit along, and I honestly don't know if I would do another one just because it's so much knitting and so much time commitment when I found it hard to find the time to finish it, and I like to finish things. I don't like to have a whole bunch of bags of projects half finished. I really like to just get it done and then move on and not have it hanging over my head or taking up my needles or whatever. So I think I would probably just wait to find out what the final design looked like before casting on next time. I really like this section though. That's my favorite one. And then this was the section that you could like decide yourself. Yeah, that's that. I think that's all the knitting I have today. We just talk about some like admin or extra stuff about the podcast. So last time I was debating whether or not to monetize my channel, and I got some really great insightful comments from viewers. It was really helpful to know that some of you were still seeing ads even though I hadn't monetized, and others let me know about some of the YouTube policies I wasn't aware of, so it was really helpful to know that. So I am going to go ahead and monetize this video. That will be the first one I've done it for, and I will try and control where the ads are within the video, and we'll see how that goes. I'm approaching 5,000 subscribers. I did not expect that would happen, so quickly. I really didn't plan to do any giveaways on this channel, just because it's a whole other aspect to manage, and I just didn't feel like I had the time. But since we're approaching such a big milestone already, I think I might do a giveaway for once we reach 5,000 subscribers. So if you are a maker of project bags, I do use project bags. All my pretty ones are holding things that I'm not working on currently. So like I don't really have anything to show. Like this is I think an Old Navy like beach bag, and this is my Fiber Nook shopping bag, shopping tote, and this is one of my favorite knitting bags actually. It's an old purse from Old Navy, and it has this big zippered pocket, and it has pockets inside, and that's one of my favorites. So there's nothing really to show for like makers project bags, but if that's something you're interested in doing, promoting your business through this giveaway, I would love to hear about it. Send me an email, or if you're a yarn dyer or a yarn producer, I'd love to hear that too. I know some of you like to hear about the wildlife that we have out here. We actually overlook a whole bunch of agricultural land, but we back onto a wooded ravine that connects us to a national park. So we have quite a few wildlife here on our property, and we had a little excitement when a young moose, he or she would have been born last spring, so not even a year old, was hanging around, walking around our property, eating our raspberry bushes, and he or she decided to spend some nights in our hay shed, and I was actually going to start putting some grain out for it. It's been a really hard winter for ungulates, for deer and moose, and anything hooved like that. We've had a lot of freeze-thaw events. That didn't used to be typical, but every year it seems we have more rain in the middle of winter and more melting, more days above zero, but that's not the end of winter, so it goes back to really frigid temperatures, and that creates a crust of ice on top of the snow, which creates a very difficult environment for hooved animals to move around, and they need to move around in order to find food. It's also harder for them to get to food because they have to scrape away the snow to get to whatever they're trying to eat on the bottom of on the earth, oh my goodness, I can't talk. Like grass and lichens, whatever, things that are on the ground now covered by snow. They have to not only scrape away the snow, but also these layers of ice. The ice acts like glass and can rip apart their legs and give them like open wounds. So basically this kind of winter just depletes their resources, and it's very difficult for them to survive. So when I first saw that little guy, not so little, he's like the size of a cowl, but I thought, well, I mean, he was born last spring, so mom must be done with him now, right? Kicked him out. But apparently moose can stay with their moms for a year or more, so I'm afraid that he might have lost his mom. She might have kicked the bucket because of this hard winter, and then he's on his own. So anyway, I was gonna leave grain out for him, but he never came back, so hopefully he's still out there making it. But yeah, there's been a lot of deer carcasses around, so I think it's pretty tough for them. Even though we had like a really intense melt, like it didn't even freeze overnight, so it was over 24 hours of melting, which is insane in February. But a lot of that snow went so that we could actually see grass in the fields. So conditions did improve for them, but I don't know if he made it through, poor little guy. And then I just kept hearing stories of people in Europe, like in Russia, and who have pet moose. I really wanted a pet moose. Yeah, otherwise I don't really know what else to update you guys on. Take care. God bless. Keep knitting. Bye.